Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel. I hope everybody's having a great New Year's week. I guess if you could have called last week Christmas week before Christmas occurred on Friday, then it's proper this week to call this week New Year's week, since New Year's occurs on Friday too, right? I don't know if everybody thinks of it that way, though. But New Year's week. I remind you that you can email me during the show, edwarddentzel@reagan.com. For that matter, you can email me anytime at that email address. And you can tweet me during the show. And my Twitter account is Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. Of course, you have to put that little A with the circle around it at the beginning, at Dentzel Domain, all one word. I was over at my parents' place. I've told you yesterday that they are here until the end of March. And we were watching some Family Feud with Steve Harvey. That's one of my parents' favorite game shows. Can I just ask you a question? When did that show ever get so racy with the questions and the answers? I'll admit, as you know, I don't watch a lot of TV. And even when I watch TV, I hardly ever watch any game shows. Although I will admit, having spent some time over at my brother Brian's house the last couple weeks since it's the holidays, he and I one day sat there for at least a couple hours and watched Match Game reruns from 1978 on the channel called Buzzer. And I should say, when I was house sitting for him back in October, I did the exact same thing. They had a Match Game weekend, and back then I watched too. There's just something about that show that's fascinating to me. I don't know what it is. And my brother, Brian, who is a little older than I am, and watched it back then when it was on TV regularly. And so we were both sitting there just fascinated by this. But Family Feud, I thought it was supposed to be like a family game. When did it get so racy? And as you know, I'm no prude. I was just a little surprised what goes down on that show these days. Love Steve Harvey. Think he's a funny guy. His appearance on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld, I think, is one of the best of all of those episodes. But that show, wow. Just a little surprising to me. So let's get to the show. My show, which is not a game show. I want to start first with just an overview of the year 2015, because those stories have started to come out. National Review, the Financial Times, just taking a look back at what happened for this year. And I think that, it's... Who knows what historians will say if they're objective about the year 2015, 50 years from now, or 100 years from now, or even 20 years from now. Who knows what they'll say? But I think it's safe to say, looking back at it just now, December 29th, 2015, it was a rough year. Rough year, not just in the United States, but for all over the world. Not a lot of places to make a lot of money. In fact, I would say that a lot of people probably lost money this year. The markets were very flat. Despite what everybody has been saying, there's definitely inflation going on. I only know about it in the United States since I live here, but I can only anticipate that's happening elsewhere, either inflation or deflation. I don't know if there were many places in the world where prices were pretty stable, or the money supplies in countries were very stable. China, with the problems that it had this year. Right. ISIS expanding. We know about, of course, most recently, the attack in San Bernardino, and then going back to November, the attack in Paris. Just a very rough year. And I think that you can say that from both a conservative point of view and a liberal point of view. I think there was a lot to not like about this year all over the world. Black Lives Matter, cop deaths being up. at least here in the United States. Rich Lowry, the editor? He's the head guy at National Review. He has an article on there, had an article on National Review Online today. I read it and I posted it earlier today. Talking about the word hysteria, and I don't mean that Def Leppard album from the 1980s, but how hysteria seemed to rule the day in the United States in 2015. It was a rough year. Even though we are several years since the financial crisis, but it's something that still continues to grip us. And of course, as conservatives, we have our opinions as to why that is. We still have service members, American service members in Afghanistan still being murdered by the Taliban. I did that story recently, but that happened still this year, going on this entire year. 14 years, like I said, after we went into Afghanistan. You can only hope that 2016 will be better, but being that we're going to be having a big election here in the United States in 2016, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Somebody is going to win and somebody is going to lose at the end of 2016, and the other side isn't going to be too happy about it. And I do believe that these economic problems that we have are going to continue. Granted, it's not the Great Depression. It's not soup lines all over the country or anything like that. But there's a reason that, for example, and you know that I don't care for him that much, Donald Trump, that he's tapped into something that is real. I think it's overrated. I think that there maybe aren't as many people supporting him as people think, but he has tapped into something, and we may in 2016 we'll reap what we sow from what happened this year and our attitude toward what happened this year of 2015. 2016 will definitely be the residual of what went on this year. The strong man, and I use that as one word, not two words, not a strong man, but the negative term of strong man. The strong man came to the forefront this year. I think you saw that in China with the crackdown that they're having over there of all sorts of different people. They call it's a corruption crackdown. I'm not so sure. Cracking down on Christians in that country, on top of all the economic issues that they've had. You had Russia trying to spread its influence again, led by a strong man. Once again, one word. Not the strong man that you go see at the circus. They're being led by a strong man. And then it seems here in the United States that a strong man, at least that's what I would call him, a strong man, Donald Trump, has dominated the media for the last 6 months. So none of that's going to go away anytime soon. And I'm not so sure a strong man, one word, is what we need right now. We just need strong people. And that's that's two words, and that's different. So it'll be interesting. We'll see how midway through 2016 we look back at 2015. And I hope to live long enough to see what is written somewhere down the road about this year. Because I can tell you, rough year. I know it was a rough year for me, rough year for other people that I know. And the country, the United States, seems to be in a situation where kind of doubting ourselves a little bit. That has a lot to do with who we have as president, but I'm not sure that Barack Obama is totally to blame for that. We as conservatives, we've let ourselves get away from who we are at least a little bit. We've gotten a little fat around the middle. I think that we've gotten off message, and I've talked about that before on this show. That I think that, in my opinion, in 2015, for me, I kind of got fed up, and it's one of the reasons that I did the show. Of course, I started it in 2014. But 2015 is the year I just became fed up with the conservative popular media that has been leading my ideology for so many years. I know that that's what happened to me in 2015 as far as concerning my conservatism. That following and listening to these men and women who have led us for so long, I finally got to the point where I've started to doubt them. Not that their principles are wrong, but their leadership style is worn out. And I think for our side, it's time to move on to new coaches. New coaches to lead the team. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with the team. And by the team, I mean conservative, your average conservative in the United States. And when I say coaches, I don't mean politicians. I mean those people that kind of exist between those two worlds, that are not exactly regular conservatives, but they're not elected officials either. They're the people that you hear on the radio, you see on TV, you go to their blogs, their websites, and what they're writing about. And for those ones that continue to hold on to their positions so hard, 2015 was the year when I decided that I think they need to be moved to the side. Somebody needs to convince some of these people, you know what, I think it's about time you retire. I know you have millions of listeners and everything, but you're not moving us toward the end zone as fast as you used to. You don't corral the team. You don't pump up the team as much as you used to. Yes, they follow you just because you're the coach, but that I'm not so sure that you inspire them as much as you used to. See, that's when I think about 2015 and my politics, my conservatism, that's what I think about when I think of the year 2015 for me. For you, I'm sure it's something else. Maybe politics isn't the first issue that comes to mind. But unless something really special happened to you in 2015, you got married, you had kids, you hit Powerball, you got cured of cancer, something like that. I think the net effect is I think people were better off at the beginning of the year 2015 than they are now. But we'll see. We'll see how history judges this year. Let's move on to something else. Hillary and Bill and what's going to go on during the 2016 election. I'm just going to do this part of the show taking for granted that Hillary Clinton is going to win the Democrat nomination. There's no given that. The probability is 99%, I'd say. I don't know what they're saying in Vegas at the sports books regarding that. I don't know what they're saying I haven't checked at 538.com recently to see what Nate Silver and the rest of them are saying. But to believe that she's going to fumble this away, kind of like she did in 2008, of course this would be a much bigger fumble than back then. I just don't see that happening. I don't see Hillary Clinton fumbling this away. But the issue is going to be how much support is she going to need from Bill Clinton? How much of a role is he going to play in her campaign? Because if you read the news and do research like I do, you probably don't, but if you follow politics, you've noticed this. Bill Clinton's name has started to come up more and more. And there have already been volleys exchanged from battleship to battleship between Donald Trump himself and his campaign and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the attitude about who Bill Clinton is, who he was, the war on women, and whether his past infidelities and everything, and accusations of rape or sexual assault or harassment, or whatever you want to call it, is fair game. Can I just tell you, I'm just kind of over this. I know that there are many conservatives out there who want that to be fair game. And they think that, well, if she's going to run and she's going to claim that Donald Trump, for example, is some sort of misogynist and sexist, I just want you to know, even though I don't like Donald Trump, I don't believe he's that. I just believe he's a bad guy. I've told you this. I don't care if the topic is men or women. He's just a bad guy. I think that he likes to talk dirty about people. And so this is just part of who he is. I don't necessarily know if he has a particularly negative attitude toward women, even though I know what he said about Megyn Kelly. But you know what? He said a lot of bad things about men, too, over the years. This is kind of who he is. See, when I start thinking about the Clinton campaign attacking whoever the nominee is, or just Republicans in general, about the war on women and how we conservatives allegedly have a war on women. See, I think of that as an opportunity for a great way to win an argument that has been going on for a few years now. I believe that there are enough facts out there, enough points to be made, that we can take this topic far outside the boundaries of whether, in our attacks back at them, far outside the boundaries of just Bill Clinton. Now, it may be that if she wants to start something like that, and whoever the Republican nominee wants to go back at her talking about her husband, that may work. It may. I'm not saying that it won't. It may. I just don't know, not too sure what would happen at this point. Because you have to remember something. There are a lot of Democrat women who love Bill Clinton. There are a lot of women who, and when I say that, I don't mean they want to sleep with him. I think that they probably look back at a younger time in their life, 20 years ago. Look at maybe 1995, 96, 97. They may look back at it and, he was president and things were pretty good. And you know what? They'd be right. And no matter how much we push that angle of who we think Bill Clinton is, whether it has to do with Paula Jones or Catherine Willey, who has to have the worst last name for a topic like this, or Jennifer Flowers, and I should note for the record, I met Jennifer Flowers once. That's a true story. 2006, I'm going to say it was, working at the Rat Pack show in Vegas. She came to the show, met her. She had to announce, she would let the maitre d' of the showroom know that she was there, which should tell you something about her, being that the only reason she's even known is because of Bill Clinton. So there's that part of it too, that I'm not saying that these stories about Bill Clinton didn't happen, but I'm also saying that there could be one or two of these women that kind of piggybacked on it. Can I say it that way? Do I have to go as far as to say that maybe something did happen with Bill Clinton, and afterwards they regretted it and they portrayed it as something else? Because we know that women do that. Because no matter how much we may push that angle of how all these women had these stories, Everybody, this isn't like some secret weapon. This isn't some new topic. This isn't some secret strategy that they have or some secret strategy that we have to combat it. This has all been out there for years. And I think that the science is pretty much decided on this. You can only go so far with discrediting Hillary Clinton because of her husband. And I'm not so sure you can go far enough to keep her from getting elected. I don't know. And it seems to me that even if it does work, it's a very short-term fix because, see, when I think about these, and this is one of the problems that I have with conservative media leadership the last several years, is that it always seems to be, this is the kind of reaction. Well, if they're going to talk about, she's going to talk about us and Donald Trump or whoever that way, then we're going to talk about Bill Clinton that way. How about we just talk about the entire Democratic Party that way? That would be a much longer term play, and there are much more facts regarding that than Bill Clinton himself, despite all of the stories that are out there about him. I don't know these women. I don't know their character. I don't know. I'm going to say, given how many stories there are, kind of like Bill Cosby, given how many stories there are, I'm going to say probably at least a few of them are true. And that's enough to make Bill Clinton or Bill Cosby a bad guy. But I tend to think much more long-term than that. I'd rather say if she's going to attack Donald Trump or whoever else, I'd rather whoever that candidate is go back at them saying, well, you know what? You know where true violence happens in this country against women? In all the Democrat areas. And you just pull out FBI study after FBI study after studies done in all these states and in these cities and where the most rapes happen and the most deaths of women, and you just keep whipping, and it's not he said, she said type of material. If you want to win, and you want to continue to win. Because you have to understand that even if you use that against Bill Clinton and it works, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've won that particular battle on that topic. You've only won it against Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, which may be enough for today, but then you're going to be fighting that same battle somewhere down the road. It's not going to stop them from bringing up the war on women again. Because they'll say, well, just different circumstances. Different candidate, different spouse, different political history, different guy, different woman, so we're going to talk about it again. Whereas it's best to have an argument for all time on our side. That they know no matter who the candidate is, no matter who the spouse of the candidate is, no matter what their history is, that we can just keep pulling out the same facts over and over and over. Because those facts are on our side. A he said, she said story is doesn't necessarily resonate with many people, even if it may be true. Even if what she said, whoever that she is, may be telling the truth. See, that's the way I look at all of this. And so when I see a Republican, whoever it is, I'm not trying to pick on Donald Trump. He just seems to be at the forefront of this right now. But other people have done the same thing before, and it's a mistake. Remember, it's Hillary Clinton who's running. And you have to try to get her to answer the question. We have a war on women. Then why is it most of the violence against women that happens in the United States happens in areas that have been controlled by Democrats for a century? For at least decades. Why is that? Where most Democrats live, where guns, for the most part, don't exist except by criminals. Why is that? If we are the ones who have a war on women, it's in your areas where women are actually dying. But when you start talking about Bill Clinton and start sounding like the National Enquirer or TMZ, it's just not powerful enough. It is a short-term fix to what is, if you keep treating it as a short-term fix, it's always going to be a long-term problem. And I don't like necessarily short-term fixes to long-term problems. I like to fix long-term problems if I can today. If not tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then the day after that. As soon as possible. Now, I know you can't stop them from talking whatever topic they're going to bring up, but it's no different than how we treat the issue of gun control. There is a reason that most Democrat politicians don't bring up guns. Only a few of them can. And I've talked about this before. Now, we haven't been able to translate our success in the gun rights realm as conservatives. We haven't been able to transfer that into other parts of political discourse. We've made it to the point where if a national candidate or a senator who's running in a state, not every state, but most states, starts talking about seizing guns and any sort of gun control, you can absolutely see that guy or woman's poll numbers go automatically down. We've done that, and we've done that over time. Why? Because we've taken the long-term view on it. We've made the long-term arguments. We don't argue about one particular crime. We don't argue about one particular murder or anything like that. We argue about how for the rest of the country's life, if citizens, legal citizens, good citizens are armed, violence will go down. That is a long-term argument that works. And we have all the statistics to show it. But on this war on women thing, I think that we've taken the totally opposite. It would be like if the San Bernardino incident, if we just wanted to argue that people in San Bernardino should have guns. That is how, to me, we have treated this war on women, specifically when the topic is Hillary Clinton and her husband. There is, of all the statistics that you can collect on the United States, anything, violence, the economy, sports, anything, there is no starker difference between the Republican areas and the Democrat areas than crime. Nothing. And that has to do with the war on women. It falls right into that. And somehow they feel confident about still bringing it up. Could it be could the reason be that we just haven't used the right argument yet? That it doesn't scare them at all to bring that up? We just haven't scared them enough. And truthfully, if we're going to bring up Bill Clinton, it may maybe scare Hillary Clinton. Maybe. You know who it doesn't scare? Most other politicians. Most other Democrat politicians. You know who it doesn't scare? Most other regular Democrats. Whereas our attitude should be to scare all of them, that they never bring it up again. And we can do that. Now, on some other topics, it's going to be a little tougher. Going to be a little tougher to do that with abortion. It's going to be a little tougher to do that with gay marriage. But if they want to talk about the war on women, if they are the ones who want to bring it up, and we know they love to bring it up, then we need to have a better argument than just going back to talk about a president of the United States who is still loved by many people, including many women. It seems like a dicey proposition to me, one that may not work, and one that is very short-sighted. But I got to go to the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
Red State Talk Radio. Lock it in and rip the knob off.
I know you're watching, so pay attention. You hate my freedom, my religion, and my country. You hate me for speaking my mind. You try to control me with violence and intimidation. You think you can muzzle me with fear? Don't ever confuse me for my politicians or my media. I am an American, free-born and free-bred, and I will call you out for who you are. An Islamic extremist who would kill me for my beliefs. You don't intimidate me. My freedom is more powerful than anything you can possibly do, and I will never, never surrender my rights to your terror. I will say what I think, worship according to my beliefs, and raise my children how I see fit, and I defend it all with the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I cower to no one, because I am the National Rifle Association of America, and I am freedom's safest place.
This is Donna Fiducia. For 26 years, I was a member of the mainstream media, most recently as an anchor at the Fox News Channel. Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media has failed you miserably. Red State Talk Radio will not fail you. Tune into Red State Talk Radio at redstatetalkradio.com, the dominant force in conservative Internet talk radio.
I lost my brother Frank in the Battle of Iwo Jima.
He served on 4 combat tours
in Vietnam,
in Iraq,
Afghanistan.
There's a life that was lost behind that pin.
I put it on for my wife,
For my husband,
my brother,
my dad.
My son.
we wear it because we honor those that we lost.
To learn more about the stories behind the Gold Star Pins, visit goldstarpins.org.
This is Jeff Carlisi from the Band 38 Special. You're listening to Red State Talk Radio. Lock it in and rip the knob off.
We're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to move on to a fascinating fact that I read. I should have noticed it by myself, frankly, on my own, but I didn't. I forget even where I read it. I'm going to be linking, by the way, to this story to Mediaite, but eventually. But that's not where I first read this fact. Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum are still in the 2016 presidential nomination race on the Republican side. I know it's easy to forget that, being that they've been in the lesser debate and they're not getting very high poll numbers. But they are. And I wonder how many people remember this. And once again, it's something that I should have thought of on my own, but it took me reading somebody else's work to know this, or to remember this. That Mike Huckabee in 2008 won Iowa. He beat John McCain there. Now, of course, he went on to kind of flub the rest of it, and John McCain won the nomination decently, easily. But Mike Huckabee won Iowa in 2008. In 2012, guess who won Iowa? Rick Santorum won Iowa. It's amazing how I think we can forget about that, because we look back at the 2012 race and we think, well, Mitt Romney really did run away with that, and he did. He did. By any statistical analysis of it, you could tell, yes, he ran away with it. But he didn't win Iowa. He won New Hampshire. He also lost South Carolina. Newt Gingrich won South Carolina. Remember that? I remember that because that was the state that had their nomination election right before Florida. And you should know in 2012, I had moved here the year before. I voted for Newt Gingrich in the primaries. Of course, he got beat quite soundly in Florida. It was pretty much Florida that propelled Mitt Romney along. Once he won Florida, I don't think he looked back much. So here we have two guys who are still involved in the presidential race in 2016 in the nomination race, who won Iowa in 2008 or 2012, and they can't smell the lead there now. I think this is interesting. And how quickly, and I think it's good, by the way. I'm not a big Mike Huckabee fan, have never been. And Rick Santorum seems like a good guy. Senator from Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. Good guy, somewhat conservative. But, you know, it's interesting that he and Mike Huckabee share a lot in common. So maybe it's not a surprise that both of them won in Iowa. And it increasingly shows why having Iowa as the first state in all of this makes no sense whatsoever. The person who wins that in the last two cycles has not gone on to win the nomination, at least on the Republican side. I've said for years that the Republicans should run their primaries according to which states are most Republican. Go for the most Republican state to the second most Republican, the third Republican, and you could choose to do that by how many Republicans are in higher office in that state, the governor, the legislature, however you want to do it. That's the way I would do it, not the way the Republicans do it now. Giving Iowa a wishy-washy state first crack, New Hampshire a wishy-washy state second crack. But that just shows you, I think, how far the Republican Party has moved on from 2012. And I think that that's good. And it's one more reason that I back whenever, I was saying, Mitt Romney, I hope he doesn't get into the race. We need to move on from him. And that's why just recently, when his name popped up again, I said we need to move on from him. That is just crazy talk. Because people have moved on. I think the politicians have moved on. And despite what I may think about Donald Trump and some of the others who are running, I think that it's good that they all have been able to move on and cover up and put behind them these guys from 2008 and 2012. I'm all for turnover, by the way, in sports teams and elsewhere. If the people who are in there aren't doing the job, somebody who thinks they're entitled to have that starting spot on the football team and the team's continuing to lose, I'm all about putting that freshman or sophomore in there to see what they can do. And that feels like what is going on now. And I think it's the reason that Jeb Bush, despite him having never run for president before, is having a hard time because he is seen as being part of the old school, of the Rick Santorum school, the Mike Huckabee school, the George W. Bush school, of course, Jeb Bush's last name, his brother, Mitt Romney, John McCain, and all of these people who are now at the front now are new on the scene. And that's good for us, whereas the Democrats are running Bernie Sanders, who's been senator from Vermont since I think I was in college. And they're running Hillary Clinton, who ran for president 8 years ago. And was a senator and then has been in American politics since the beginning of the 90s. And has been in politics with her husband since the 70s. Whereas most of the people we have running are new. I think it's also a problem that John Kasich is having, despite his positions, that he's just seen as a guy who's been in politics for too long. Ted Cruz, first-term senator. Marco Rubio, first-term senator. Young guys, 40s, early 50s. Donald Trump, not in politics at all. Ben Carson, not in politics at all. Chris Christie, kind of new to politics. Especially new compared to anybody on the Democrat side. So it's interesting. Now, having said all that, I see that Mike Huckabee is trying to work himself back into the race with this Super PAC ad. Now, he can't personally take responsibility for it, and we know how all that works. The Super PAC has to act separately from the campaign, and nary the two shall meet. And I mean, our campaign laws are just crazy, kooky. What it should be is it should just be an all-out, whoever wants to do anything can. Because I just don't believe how many of the laws are being followed. It's all these laws were passed regarding that for appearances, not because anybody is actually going to follow them. Just a suspicion that I have. But he's trying to get back to Ted Cruz. He's trying to discredit Ted Cruz regarding Ted Cruz's attitude toward gay marriage. Ted Cruz has allegedly said one thing in Iowa regarding social issues, and then he went to New York and had a fundraiser there, a meeting there, where he said that gay marriage is not a top 3 priority for him. And from that, Mike Huckabee has once again created this ad. His people have created this ad saying that Ted Cruz will talk tough about social issues in Iowa, but then when he goes to New York, he says something different. Can I just tell you how bad that is on Mike Huckabee's part? Granted, I've told you, have a little bit of a bias against him anyway, but does he not understand that we think social issues are important? But if you want to go as so far to say, well, because Ted Cruz doesn't put gay marriage in his top 3, that he's not serious about gay marriage, that's crazy. That is absolutely trying to find something where nothing exists. How about ISIS being a top threat? Is ISIS a more important topic than gay marriage? I think it is. And I am not for gay marriage. You know, if you're new to the show, my attitude toward gay marriage is nobody should have to sign any government paperwork if they want to get married. It's none of the government's business who's married and who's not. How is it that I, as a guy, can live with a woman? I don't live with any women. I've never lived with any women except as platonic roommates. I can live with my girlfriend for my whole life, have kids with her, never have to fill out a piece of paperwork detailing the relationship I have with her. But if two people decide to get a marriage in a religious institution, suddenly all this government paperwork pops up. That's crazy to me. There's something in all of that doesn't quite make sense. Anyway, how about ISIS being a bigger problem than gay marriage? How about this crappy economy being a bigger deal than gay marriage? How about Putin and Russia being a bigger deal than gay marriage? There's 3 right there that I can name in under 30 seconds. And I think this is maybe the reason. I mean, the only thing that you can deduce from Mike Huckabee's position, once again, I know it's a super PAC, but he's out there talking about how much he likes the ad that they've done. The only thing that you can deduce is that Mike Huckabee thinks gay marriage is more important than any of those three issues that I just mentioned. Now, I don't know what Ted Cruz's top three issues are. I'm going to guess that I got the ISIS one right, and I'm going to guess that I got the economy right. Maybe how about illegal immigration? Is that a big deal? That probably might be in Ted Cruz's top three. We know it's in Donald Trump's top three. But somehow, despite all of those great topics, I guess Mike Huckabee thinks that gay marriage is at least important enough to supersede at least a few of those so it can make its way into the top three on his list. And Mike Huckabee wonders why he hasn't done well this time around. Did he run? I don't even know how he did. Did he even run in 2012? I don't remember. But if this is the act that he was pulling in 2008 and being seen as the good Christian, the good social conservative, that's just not where the people are now. Now, for some people, maybe gay marriage is 8th in their priority, 6th, 10th. Maybe it just falls outside of the top three. It's 4th. But surely there are more important issues as far as keeping the United States together, where people can prosper, where people can feel safe. They don't have to worry about going to a Christmas party and getting shot. That's certainly more important than gay marriage and whether lesbians and gay men can have relationships. And whether the government actually recognizes that relationship or not. I feel the same way about abortion, even though I'm totally pro-life, but in both of those instances, you know what the truth is? The truth is, at least take them one at a time, with abortion, it's trench warfare. I said this just recently. Abortion is trench warfare. The pro-life movement gets up to about 55% of the population agreeing with them, and then it'll recede down to 49, 48, and then a couple years after that, it'll go up to 53, and then it'll go down to 47, and then it'll go back up to 55. It's just, we battle over this very small area. That doesn't mean that the battle's not worth fighting, because I know if we didn't do it, if we didn't keep talking about our pro-life stances, I know somewhere down the road, there'd be even more abortions, and the country might go 70% pro-choice or 80%. So I know it's worth fighting, but neither side, as long as they keep fighting, can get past too much farther than that 50% number. Despite what all the Planned Parenthood videos, despite partial birth abortion legislation, all of it. It's just where we are. And we'll continue to fight because the fight is worth having. But when you start putting it in the top three, a priority in the top three that you haven't been able to make any movement on in years, I don't know how good that strategy is. I don't know. Is that a strategy or a tactic? I don't know. Now with gay marriage, this is something that I think the reason that we've continued to lose, not continue to lose, but we've lost ground on this topic. Maybe the country has changed, but I think this goes back to what I said yesterday regarding religion and how it forgot to defend it, how it forgot why it was so popular in the first place. And it wasn't by force. You have to realize that all of that stuff, the 10 Commandments in courthouses and prayers before games and prayers after games and graduation ceremonies and the rest of it, it's all there not because of force. There wasn't some law saying it had to be done. It was by choice. And there was a logical reason that those choices were made. And religion forgot how that logical path went from nothing to something. What's the same way I think with gay marriage? That we forgot why is it that we see straight people being together as different from gay people being together. And it's not necessarily because now more gay people are out of the closet. I think we're learning every day that more, it seems, there's still a lot of gay people still in the closet. As many who have been around for years, like Bruce Jenner, coming out of the closet. Now, is he technically gay? I just don't even want to go into the semantics of that. For all these people who've been around 50, 60 years, and then suddenly they're changing their lives, we know there are still a lot of people living in the closet. And that's too bad. I'm not for that. But for straight people who are married, who don't believe in gay marriage, they've forgotten why that all existed for so long anyway, and it wasn't because necessarily of gay people staying in the closet. The truth is that married people got lazy, just like Christianity got lazy. And straight people bought into all of the government benefits and exceptions that were made for people who get married. And it didn't take long for gay people who are now out of the closet to say, hey, why is it that straight people can get a break on their taxes and I'm with my partner all these years and we don't? Why do straight people get breaks on their insurance and we don't? Just down the line, all these exceptions. And see, as a single person like I am, it's easy for me to see how this happens. I'm 45 years old, and I can guarantee you that another 45-year-old who is married guy, who has the driving record that I do, which is pretty pristine, probably has a lower rate than I do, just because he's married and I'm single. You recognize these things, and things that married people don't understand. They just take them for granted. And so when those things are challenged, married people have a tough time explaining why this is or why that is. And that is what has allowed gay marriage to become popular very quickly. And I still stand by my stance that no married people should be getting any advantages from the government. Private enterprise, I don't know what you can do about that. But from the government, that's wrong. We should be viewed as individuals, not as people in relationships. So, given all of that, it's no wonder maybe that Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum, who are seen as being very strong on social issues, aren't doing very well now. And it's no wonder that, at least in Mike Huckabee's case, he wishes that social issues were a bigger deal. He wants to put them in the top 3. You know why? Not because I'm not sure that he thinks that they're that important. He just knows that if they were, he'd be doing better. There's that part of it I think about too. Does he really believe that gay marriage as a topic should be in the top 3? Or does he just want it to be up there because that's his strong suit? Is his belief based on politics, or is it based on something truly from the heart? I don't know. But I'm getting near the end of the show, and so I want to remind you, you can go to Amazon.com. You can find my books there. You can download them to your Kindle in a matter of moments. You can just do a search for Edward Dentzel. My 3 books, my Govicide series, and my book Distant. My next book is called The Comebacks. Speaking of which, you can go to edwarddentzel.com/book. to be able to download the first chapter of my next book for free. You do it today, you'll get the chapter within moments. So I'd urge you to go there and check that out. On my site, edwarddentzel.com, you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. You can find my highlight reel, my promo video, which I think is interesting. Did a good job on that. You can also find my old Red State Talk Radio shows at SoundCloud, Podbean, in the iTunes Store. In the podcast section, you can also find them on YouTube. Now, how that works is you hear the show. The next day, you hear the show on Red State Talk Radio. The next day, you'll be able to find the show at those locations if you missed the show the night before. You can also find me at Facebook and on LinkedIn. And I got to go. It's been a great time talking to you tonight, and I'll talk to you again very soon. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.